The sandwich hit the floor before he even turned around. Same day, same hour, same little alien thief. And yet every Tuesday he still made sure the food was warm. He just didn't know that the thief wasn't stealing for herself. She was stealing to keep her dying mother alive. And when he finally found out, everything changed. The sandwich still steamed when Troy set it on the counter. He told himself it was for a customer who might wander in, but both of them knew better. Tuesdays had rules now. The bell would chime once, soft and certain, and the worst thief in the quadrant would crawl across his shop floor like a spy in a cartoon. He wiped the counter slowly, pretending not to look at the security screen. There she was, tiny, violet-skinned, silver hair glowing under the neon sign outside. She crouched behind a chair that did absolutely nothing to hide her tail. Her humming was off-key and loud enough to wake the dead. "Sure hope nobody steals that meatball sub," he said to the empty air. "It's extra saucy. Terrible loss if it vanished." A small gasp. Then the chair wobbled, a paper napkin fluttered, and the sandwich disappeared. So did 2 bags of chips and a bottle of lemon soda. A crumpled note replaced them, written in uneven letters that danced across the page. "Sorry, Mama need. I pay soon." Troy smiled before he could stop himself. The kid was improving. Her spelling had almost evolved to the same level as her stealth. When the bell chimed again, silence returned. He exhaled, folded the note and tucked it into the register beside the other 9. 10 weeks of the same ritual. 10 stolen lunches that weren't really stolen. He should have been worried. He wasn't, not yet. Later, upstairs in his small apartment, he checked the planetary database again. Vorthani physiology, purple-skinned species from a gas giant colony, required specific Earth-based enzymes to process oxygen-rich proteins. Expensive to synthesize off-world, so that's what this was. Not theft, survival. He leaned back in his creaking chair. The old wanted poster staring down from the wall. The Mirage, data thief. 1 million credits, reward. The face was blurred, the eyes hollow. But it was him. Once. Now he just sold sandwiches and tried to pretend he'd retired from saving or ruining people's lives. Tomorrow was another Tuesday. Another sub, another note, another lie to himself that he wasn't waiting for the bell. And when it rang again, he already had the wrapper open and the sauce warm. That night, the bell rang long after closing time. Troy looked up from the flickering holoscreen, expecting silence. Instead, he heard a faint, uneven breath followed by a soft thud. He grabbed his pulse light and stepped into the shop. Someone was slumped against the counter, taller than the child, thinner, trembling. Purple skin dulled to grey, silver hair tangled and dry. When she tried to stand, her knees buckled. "Easy," Troy muttered, catching her before she hit the floor. "You're bleeding green, so I'm guessing you're not from around here." She tried to smile, failed, and rasped. "You must be the man my daughter keeps stealing from." Troy froze. "So the little thief talks about me." "She says you make good sandwiches," the woman whispered, "and that you pretend not to see her. That's kind." Her voice cracked halfway through the last word. He helped her into a chair, noticing the faint shimmer of fever under her skin. She looked exhausted, the kind of tired that settles into bone and never leaves. "You're her mother," he said quietly. "She calls me Kane," she answered. "Though lately, she just calls me Mama." A weak laugh escaped her. "You shouldn't help us. It's dangerous. Lady, I fry meatballs for a living." "I think I'll survive the danger." Kane's hand shook as she tried to pull something from her coat, a few faded trade credits. "Payment." For what she took, he pushed her hand back gently. "Keep it. You both need it more than I do." Tears gathered in the corners of her silver eyes, but she turned away before they could fall. "We'll leave soon," she said. "Before the enforcers find us, the who? People who think curing disease is bad for business," she murmured. "They destroyed our lab. We ran." Troy stared at her, realization sinking like a stone. This wasn't a story about hunger. It was survival against the machine he once helped build. He said nothing more. Just wrapped a sandwich, set it in front of her and whispered, "Eat before it gets cold." For the first time that night, She obeyed, and for the first time in years, Troy forgot to lock the door. For 3 days, Kane and her daughter stayed in the small apartment above the shop. Troy pretended it was temporary, just until she regained her strength, but he'd already started cooking double portions without thinking about it. Lyra filled the space like sunlight. She drew on napkins, turned his security drone into a toy, and asked questions faster than he could answer. Why do humans drink coffee if it tastes like burnt sadness? Because it keeps us awake, he said. So does joy, she replied, serious as a philosopher. Kane mostly stayed quiet, watching them with cautious eyes. Every so often she coughed, a sharp sound that made Lyra flinch. Troy noticed the way Kane hid a vial of dull green medicine inside her sleeve. He didn't ask, yet. One afternoon, while Kane slept, the shop bell rang again. A tall figure of translucent metal entered, Inspector Unit 9, Trade Enforcement Division. Its voice clicked like breaking glass. Merchant Troy Castellano. Audit required. Irregular supply reports. Troy's stomach tightened. The mirage might have been erased from the records, but digital ghosts had long memories. Sure thing, he said casually. You'll find my ledgers cleaner than my floors. While the inspector scanned shelves, a faint giggle echoed from under the counter. Lyra. Hiding again, badly. The metal head tilted. Unidentified sound source. Troy coughed loudly, knocking over a sauce bottle. That old compressor. Makes jokes sometimes. The inspector blinked a mechanical blink, logged a note, and left. When the door shut, Lyra popped up triumphant. See, I'm invisible. You're loud enough to register on 3 planets, he said, half laughing, half terrified. Later that night, Kane found him staring at the flickering wanted poster. You were the mirage, she said softly. It wasn't a question. Troy didn't deny it. Once, long ago, she stepped closer. Then you know how to reach the network. The real one. Why would you want that? Because the cure for my disease sits behind a corporate firewall you helped design. He looked at her, the weight of years pressing against his ribs. Help her, and he risked exposure. Walk away and she'd die. He poured himself a cup of burnt sadness coffee and finally said, All right, one more job. Outside, the neon sign flickered, painting them both in red light, 2 fugitives about to steal a miracle. Troy hadn't hacked in years, but the rhythm came back faster than guilt. Fingers hovered over the interface, breathing slow and deliberate, every keystroke a memory. The code pulsed like an old scar reopening. The plan was simple, at least on paper. Break into Xyroscorp's central archive, steal the enzyme formula locked behind layers of security, and vanish before anyone noticed. But nothing about redemption was ever simple. Kane watched from the corner, pale and restless. If you get caught, they'll execute you. He smiled faintly. If I don't, they'll keep charging people for the right to breathe. Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, holding a crayon drawing of the 3 of them. You'll come back, right? Always do, he said, but even his voice didn't believe it. That night, the neon glow of the city bled through the fog. Troy moved through it like a ghost, returning to its crime scene. The old tools fit his hands too well. When the first firewall cracked open, adrenaline replaced fear. He almost felt alive again. Inside the digital vault, encrypted strands of data shimmered like glass threads. He found the file, Project E42, Forthani enzyme synthesis, and copied it into his drive. But then he saw the fine print. Genetic lock. Kane's DNA required to activate. Damn it, he whispered. He could save her, but he couldn't hide anymore. So he made a different choice. Troy rerouted the connection, broadcasting the data to every open channel in the sector. The entire galaxy saw the truth. How corporations had hoarded the cure, how thousands had died for profit. Alarms screamed. Security drones flooded the corridors. He fought through them with nothing but luck and leftover courage. Sparks lit the night as he burst into the alley outside his shop, drive still hot in his pocket. Inside, Kane collapsed mid-step, the illness tearing through her. Troy reached her just as her daughter screamed. It's okay, he said, injecting the first real dose into her arm. You're safe now. Sirens echoed in the distance. The world knew who he was again. "The Mirage is back!" someone shouted through a loudspeaker. Troy didn't care. He just held Kane's trembling hand and whispered, "Worth it." Outside, Lyra clung to him, small arms shaking as dawn bled through the shop windows. For the first time in years, he felt clean. Morning arrived slow, like it was afraid to touch what was left of the night. The shop smelled of burnt bread, disinfectant and survival. Troy sat beside Kane's bed upstairs, still wearing the jacket streaked with ash. Lyra slept on the floor, curled around her mother's hand. When Kane finally opened her eyes, they weren't grey anymore. They glowed faintly violet, clear and steady. "You did it," she whispered. Troy exhaled, half a laugh, half a prayer. "Yeah, don't tell anyone. I've got a reputation for laziness," she smiled weakly. "They'll come for you. They'll come for a ghost," he said. "And I've been one for a long time." Downstairs, the shop's hollow screen flickered with breaking news. The Mirage leaks, Gyroscope collapse, millions saved. The universe had found its scandal, and he'd found something better. Peace. Weeks passed. The door stayed unlocked now. Customers trickled in, drawn by curiosity, maybe gratitude. Kane worked behind the counter when her strength allowed. Lyra painted the walls with stars and badly drawn sandwiches. One afternoon, a boy, thin, nervous human, tried to sneak in through the back door. He reached for a pastry, hesitated, and froze when he saw Troy watching. Troy said, without looking up, "You might want to duck before the alarm pings." The kid blinked. "You saw me?" "Kid, I used to make seeing people my job." The boy lowered his head. "I was just hungry." Troy wrapped a sandwich, slid it across the counter. "Then you're in the right place. Come back tomorrow. You can pay me with work, not shame." When the boy left, Lyra whispered, "He's not good at stealing." "That's how it starts," Troy said, smiling. "Bad thieves make the best people." Evening softened the shop's lights. Kane stood beside him, her hand finding his. "We could run again," she said quietly. He shook his head. "Not anymore. Running used to mean freedom. Now it just means leaving what we finally built." The bell chimed once, soft, certain, familiar. Lyra grinned. Another Tuesday. Troy looked around the small, warm shop filled with laughter and the faint hum of a life rebuilt. "Yeah," he said, "and for once I'm not waiting for anyone to steal something. I already have everything worth keeping."